So, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and welcome to the graveyard shift. The rest of the audience is gone, and I think we should also just leave, guys. Right?
I think it's a good idea.
For the last few years, the industry has debated when and if to modernize our technology. Today, we know that's just table stakes. The real frontier isn't just about migrating to the cloud or decoupling legacy systems for internal efficiency. Really, the true financial edge comes from how we orchestrate those technologies to build trust. The honest truth is that we are shifting from product-centric architectures to live-centric customer journeys. And the reality is, you cannot deliver seamless, empathetic, and customer experience if your underlying data and your systems are fragmented. Joining me is a panel of very experienced leaders. I'm going to give them an opportunity just to break the ice, to introduce themselves over and above what our MC has done. Grace.
Talk about the hot seat after and the graveyard shift. So I hit up client service and CX at the JSC, but at the end of the day, I think that's just a title. I'm really passionate about growing leaders and how do we deliver to our clients, but keeping that human factor in it. I've been at the JSC for my longest stint at any organization. It's going to be 11 years this year. And the thing I enjoy the most about it is that you're constantly learning, and where we're at now is that we are forced to evolve. So that's quite exciting, and that's what we're here to talk about.
Brilliant. Thank you, Grace.
Hi, everyone. My name's Paul, and my passion at the bank has always been within sales, business development, growing customer base, and as punishment for my sins, they put me in charge of a credit and scoring engine that I have to look after. So go figure. But with that, it does lead to understanding the customer a lot better and how do we actually solve for clients leveraging data. So that's been what I've been up to for the past 2 years. It's been quite successful. I think our market share is now climbing upwards of 70%, up from 30%. So that sales background is still in me. Thank you.
Fancy.
Great, thank you. So, as mentioned, my name is Jesang. I work for an organization called the Better Than Cash Alliance, which I think is not well known in South Africa. But at the Alliance, what we do is we work with our members, primarily governments, corporates, international organizations, to shift from cash to digital payments to drive financial inclusion. So we work in a range of sectors. We work in the agriculture sector, the health sector, garment sector, government to person payments. But really, much as we're championing digital payments and financial inclusion, it's more about what are the outcomes of people being financially included. So what are the benefits that accrue to them from having access to credit, to insurance, to savings, and a range of products. And what I hope to bring onto the panel, given our experience newly in South Africa, but also across the continent, is what is on the customer side and some of the journeys that are being orchestrated by financial institutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Caroline.
Hi, I'm Caroline. I work at Capitec. I won't start talking about market share in case it makes you feel uncomfortable. So I started a team a couple of years ago, and we're really looking at client data. What does it mean for it to be stitched together? What does it mean for it to be high quality? Tshidiso, you talked about the fact that we need good foundational client data to power great, consistent client experiences. It also turns out that you actually need a lot of consistency in your processes to be able to create good client data. So I spend a lot of my time looking at the information strategy and the actual business strategy and process strategies to make sure that we acquire and manage our client data in a really great way. I wouldn't say it's completely great just yet, but we're on our way. But yeah, my passion is really a background of a lot of data analytics, information strategy, and really it's a very challenging thing to take on in a large organization which has got a lot of different divisions and in some ways quite fragmented. How do you try and create that level of consistency and quality? Even defining what quality means is a pretty tough thing in that world.
Brilliant. Thank you, Caroline. Since we know that this is the graveyard shift, right? A bit of rules. No, you're not allowed to sleep, to yawn. I'll be watching you, and I'll be marking you. All right, we're docking points for those that are not going to participate today. Right. Let's get into it. So, Grace, tell me, we talk a lot about transformation in this industry, right? What are the most common customer pain points in the industry, and how are organizations, especially yours, addressing them operationally?
So, as much as this is the graveyard shift, don't expect any great new insights. It's not rocket science what I'm going to be telling you. You all know what the pain points are. It's access, it's cost, it's trust, and it's effort. And when we look at from a cost perspective, cost will always be an issue for us in the economic climate we're in, but even more so from a South African perspective, there are sub-segments in our population that are unbanked, underserved, and what the most financial institutions are doing is we're trying to create better financial literacy. So even from a JSC perspective, I hope that you are all watching the podcasts. We're teaching people to save. It's a new language. It's not something that historically is something that we as South Africans have done, looked at investments and saving and had that discretionary spend. But it's about educating people, but educating people in a manner that is accessible as well. The trust one is very similar to what we spoke about in the previous session. It's really, we want to move as fast as AI is moving, but we also have to be aware that AI also brings with it some risk. How do we know what's true? And we've had so many phishing scams, we don't even know what artists are really singing or not singing. So how do we know if this banking product is real? I mean, if you think that it's only the people that are maybe not as financially or tech savvy, what we call Luddites, that they are the ones that are falling for these scams, it's not the case. Many of us are seeing stuff on TikTok, seeing stuff on our Instagram or whatever, and we're ordering these things and waiting to infinity, and it never arrives. So we all are falling victim to that. But I think the biggest pain point is effort. So we can all come up with innovative, great products, great automations, etc. But we don't always look at, a lot of the organizations have a lot of legacy systems, but we also have legacy people. And we go out and sell things, but then the post-sale service is where the challenge is. You get multiple handoffs, you have fragmented service offerings, and then please, people, don't ever have a crisis, don't have a financial problem, don't have a death in the family, don't want to claim, because that's when we're going to give you the real, that's when you really feel that stick in the mud and where people feel that pain. Because it's easy to onboard people, but even the onboarding process is not great, right? If you think about KYC, it's important, compliance is important. But if I've been banking with an institution for 20 years, and now I want to take out a home loan, I need to give you all that information again and a DNA sample. So from a client's perspective, that's not ideal. So we are looking at how to digitize that, looking at how to create workflows. So ultimately, I'll say that the biggest thing that we as financial institutions are trying to do is looking at that single view of client, trying to get a better understanding of what works for everybody. So we're not creating one size fits all, because we are all in the same ocean, but we are not in the same boats. Some of us are out here on a raft. So it's important that when we're looking at that, we're looking at the effort. Like Maya Angelou always says, people remember how you made them feel. And I think when you're engaging with something as important as your money, I'm going to remember how easy it was, how much you cared about me, and did you actually deliver on what you said?
Well, couldn't agree more. And we do know that one of the major reasons for these pain points to be so difficult to solve could be architecture. So, Jesang, if I may come to you, what advice would you give organizations which are starting their customer journey transformation and they are struggling with siloed systems and fragmented data?
Yeah, thanks for that. And I like that Grace has touched on a number of elements that I'll get to as well. But just again to contextualize it in what we do, we are consistently thinking through the customer journey on shifting users away from cash to digital payment rails. And we have a number of experiences. I think I'll firstly share on one of our lessons from Malawi, where we're digitizing payments in the tea sector. And it's sort out your systems before you touch your customers. And we had an experience where in that digitization initiative, financial service providers were onboarding clients using a certain unique identifier. At the estates where they work, they're recognized by a different identifier, and those systems weren't speaking to each other. So there was significant onboarding friction at that point, and we lost a lot of time and resources trying to, get that back on track. So I would say, ensure your systems are interoperable, processes are seamless, and the data is clean. And then to the point Grace made as well, is this single user view at an organizational level. So one organization, one experience. If a customer has provided their ID, their registration, whatever information, at another touch point with the institution, whether they're escalating an issue or going for another product, they shouldn't be required to give all that information again beyond validation and security. Those siloed systems, they cause a lot of frustration and they break down trust. And especially when you're dealing in communities with low digital literacy or high distrust in financial institutions, every point of friction is a dropout risk that sometimes organizations can't afford. Then the third one I would say is user centricity. So we advocate for the UN principles for responsible digital payments, but it moves beyond just payments. I think it can be contextualized with digital technologies and architecting customer journeys. Think about the customer journey outside of your internal process map. Then at that journey, think of every point where there might be fragmented data or a silo, and fix those before you then go to the customer, so that at the point when you're interacting with them, a lot of these frictional elements have been thought through. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And we know that once we start breaking down those silos, the single most massive challenge is presenting that to a single cluster of customer. So Caroline, if I may bring you in here, how do you ensure that customers receive a consistent experience when moving between these digital channels, call centers, branches, and relationship managers as well?
That's pretty hard. So it's a common challenge, right? And I think we need to see it beyond just brand, and the look and feel that you have, but clients want a sense of consistency. So you're not necessarily going to have everything that can seamlessly transition multiple channels. So you've got to pick what is actually important for you to have as omni-channel experiences for a start. What kinds of things matter in that context? As an information strategist, you have to have an underlying information architecture that can then embed in a central way. And by central, I mean across the channels that you wish to have consistency, the context and the state that you need to track to be able to allow a consistent experience. So when a client engages on a different channel, that issue may not be fully resolvable, but there should be context that there is an issue and an ability to support the clients in any case. Now that requires a careful design of what kind of context and state are you needing to track, where and how do you actually do that? And it also means that you have to have very careful governance around how you design those journeys. So your client engagement function, your journey ownership in alignment with the framework has to be well managed, and you have to have very consistent channel level capabilities. And we have to bear in mind that those are not just at an outbound level, but an inbound level. So certain client journeys, you're trying to engage the client. If a client comes back in on a different channel, they need to be clear on what is that communication, what might the issue for the client actually be. So I think we spend a lot of time designing the journeys. We don't always spend a lot of time designing the underlying information framework that can actually power them. And how do you design that in a way that allows for multiple types of journeys? So that's a lot of what we're working on at present. And I think it is a far deeper sense of consistency across channels than where we tend to focus, which is, the CX, the brand, the tone, those sort of things. But it is hard, and especially if you acquire other divisions, within your organization, it's a constant effort to try and make sure that you have those levels of consistency.
Yeah, and I'm sure you would agree that that consistency starts from day one. So while you're on the floor, how can customers simplify onboarding processes while still maintaining a strong compliance and security requirements? Maybe before you answer, I think I should throw that question to the audience to see if they are awake. Gentleman in front of me. If you may, please.
Onboarding is one of my favorite topics. Okay. Look, first, I think you need to understand what onboarding is, and you need to classify that correctly. You have to separate out the client onboarding from the product uptake, right? So normally, clients don't onboard just to go through a delightful KYC process, right? They're on board for a product. But if it's the first engagement or a different engagement to what the client has priorly engaged with you, there is a KYC angle on that. And that's often what creates most friction. So a few things you've got to get right. First, don't redo it if you've done it already and you've done it in a reusable fashion. So that's a good starting point. We tend to rebuild in a very divisional fashion sometimes the same capabilities over and over again. So how do you reuse capabilities that can then mean you have a very consistent process from a compliance perspective, but also from a client experience perspective. So that is important to think about, building them as reusable capabilities, not a divisional or a product-orientated capability. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is, I think there's a lot of complexity in those KYC processes, and just delightfully, the regulation also evolves and changes. So you've got to think about ways in which you can build such that you have flexibility for when the business changes and the regulation changes. How do you have a really seamless process, and how do you achieve the compliance? That ultimately, I think, a good approach is to take rather a business rule-driven approach that can dynamically sort of adjust based on predefined business rules, and where your workflows actually change in response to those. So more practically, we shouldn't be building a myriad of different workflows. You should have business rules that drive, if I'm onboarding a PTY Limited, I need this and I need that. If I'm onboarding a trust, I automatically understand I need this and that. Those should not be different workflows. Those should be business rule-driven workflows that operate in a dynamic way. I think there's probably been a lot of talk about AI in this conference. I think it also has an interesting ability to provide if we use it well, and I won't try and define well, you can also use that to become a lot more human and a lot more intuitive with the kinds of questions we ask. So things like asking clients about foreign tax or beneficial ownership. You know, these are not the most accessible of topics. You pretty much need a PhD in rocket science to understand some of that. But the irony is that most of our clients who don't understand it, it's not relevant for. The very sophisticated clients who do have foreign tax obligations actually know what we're talking about. But you have this contradiction of 98% or 90% of your clients, you're asking very difficult questions that they don't understand and it's not relevant to them. So there is an opportunity with some of the LLM technologies that are coming out to make those things more accessible. That makes a better client experience and it makes for more accurate data if you can get that combination right. So I think there's great opportunities to, especially with some of the emerging technologies, to make that balance between ghastly compliance-orientated questions that we have to ask versus the accessibility and the intuitive understanding for our clients. So those are some of the areas that, you know, I think are important to start mixing together.
Thanks, Caroline. So, Grace, if I may bring it back to you on the execution side. Paul, I promise I'm not ignoring you, eh?
All good. I think they're answering all the questions for me, so it's going well.
So, in order to make cross-channel transition look seamless, it requires a lot of backing. So what would you say are the technology investments that have had to be made and that have made the biggest impact in improving customer journeys and across the financial services?
So I think that definitely when we look at it from a CRM perspective, we need to manage the information that we are custodians of, and we need to manage it more effectively. To your point, Caroline, is like also looking at how we personalize that engagements with our clients without being intrusive. So it's about navigating that responsibly, and then looking at what interventions actually would add value to that specific segment. It's not about a one-size-fits-all. I mean, like we think we can automate everything. We can't take out the human element. So it is important that we look at that. I think some of the financial institutions have also really done quite well with, you know, the micro lending, the mobile banks, you know, trying to get to those underserved segments. But I also think the financial education is so important, and we can't underestimate the importance of that.
Yeah. Thank you for segueing into the next section. We've talked a lot about tech and channels, but let's shift our focus to the conceptualizing of the journeys. Jesang, if I may bring it back, how can financial institutions better design services around life events, such as buying a home, a bereavement, or business growth, or instead of just around products like we normally do?
Yeah, thanks. So I'll give the perspective of financial institutions designing around MSME business growth, because MSMEs is a sector we work quite a bit with. And I think it's important to put your, put the hat on of the MSME. An MSME doesn't wake up thinking, I want a working capital loan or I need trade finance. It's a bit more granular than that. So someone's probably thinking, I need to get certified so I can, apply for a certain contract, or I want to start trading cross borders. How do I get payments across the border? So it's important to map the journey, not the product. And in saying that, understand where the SME is today, where are they trying to go, what are those barriers to get there, and then you retrofit the products to fit the journey that they're on. And if I can give an experience, I mean, I sat in a presentation on one of the UNDP digitization initiatives happening locally, where they're equipping spaza shops with an AI-driven tool that allows them to map health and safety compliance within the shops. Now, this is in the context of the crisis at the end of 2024, where a few kids lost their lives consuming snacks from the spazas. And they've mapped a whopping 44,000 spaza shops. But the reality is a lot of these spazas are not compliant. And the feedback we were getting is that they need between 2,000 to 3,000 Rand to get to compliance and then be able to qualify for loans of up to 100,000 Rand. So a product-first institution would look at them and see massive credit risk. I think a growth-focused or journey-first institution would look at them and see, okay, maybe I can give them a small compliance bridge loan that then allows them to unlock, significantly more. And in the context of, 44,000 spaza shops, that's quite a significant opportunity. So I think what I would encourage is, just put the hat on of, where the businesses are. So stop looking at the product perspective, or at least prioritize what does this business need versus what product does this client need. And I think then the products become more fit for purpose for those specific segments. Yeah.
Thank you. Designing for these high-stress life events can be difficult and requires a delicate touch from us as technologists. So, Paul, bringing the human element into this, how do organizations balance automation with human interaction, especially when customers require the need for empathy and reassurance?
Thank you for bringing me in.
Finally.
Voice is a bit, there we go. Well, I thought he was being polite, ladies first, so congratulations, you're a gentleman. Right, so what we're trying to do as an organization is we want to become a trusted advisor to our customers. And if you just look around the room at the moment, everyone who's got their cell phone out, they're smarter than us. They're using AI right now. Anything I say, they can go and double check. Anything I'm forecasting of what we want to do, they can go see, is anyone else doing it better? So they're smarter than us. We're dealing with the smartest customers we've ever dealt with. So we have to appease them. We have to be up to scratch. And part of that is that bridge between AI and the human interaction. And that it brings up one of the key challenges that you can have with AI. If it feels too system-led, those questions you're mentioning, Caroline, of just asking, what's your tax number, what's this? Okay, great, I'm talking to a system, this has really got my back, right? It has to have that human element that you spoke of, actually. And it's a difficult gap to bridge, but it is possible. And that's what's so important with us. So, just looking at my own environment, if we're looking at scoring as an example, customers applying for credit, it's no longer the case of, hiding the details of what it is we're doing to score you. Now it's become a transparent journey because you can go check for yourself in what it is we're doing. So rather be transparent with the customers and walk that journey with them and actually guide them along that journey. They'll appreciate that a lot more if they have to do the research for themselves. And, just using that example and just because of my background and current role, we have a lot of clients who are applying for credit, and it's very simple. If you think of the past or maybe your parents, maybe we're going further back, they would go and apply for credit and they'll go into a branch and they would get a simple yes or no. That was it. If they asked why the no, the branch consultant will tell you, well, the computer told me so, or the calculator, whatever it was. And that was an end of it. You can't do that to customers anymore. Now you have to give reasoning behind everything you do. So normally if a customer gets approved, they leave feeling delighted and they don't have any further questions and your life is a lot easier. It's the customers who decline. Those are the ones that actually need the assistance. And that's where leveraging AI tools and leveraging our transparency, we're actually able to walk them through that journey. We know why they were declined. We share that information with them, whether that's through an automated function or coming into our branch world, that one customer you were talking about, we make sure we've got that single view available so we can service the customers. Were you declined due to affordability, perhaps no turnover in your account, whatever the reason is. But then we turn that into an opportunity. So when we're giving customer feedback, regardless of what it is they're asking for, if we're not giving them the answer they want and we can see a solution for the customer, we share that with them too. Your affordability is not up to scratch. Yeah. Perhaps you could look into this or that, and this will actually get you an approval in the future. Also, the product you're looking for isn't necessarily matched up to what your needs are. Maybe you should look at this as well. Now, to have a human going through all of that is near impossible, and that's where you have to leverage off automation and artificial intelligence to give you those recommendations. And you also have to do it in line with the customer's consent that they've given to you. So as a bank, one of the biggest privileges we have is actually getting customer data. I mean, I could go to Grace next to me now and say, do you want to see my bank statements? Probably not. I don't want to share that with her. It wouldn't be a pretty sight. And Grace would be laughing at me. But I'll do that with my bank. So it's a privileged opportunity that we're given, and we have to protect that as well.
Yeah.
And if the consent that the customer gives to us as well, we should never breach that consent. So that's why customers come back to us. It's not like when you're looking for a new television or a car, you get a social media advert from a bank explaining that to you. So a bank is a trusted advisor. That's what we want to get to, and that's the gap we're trying to bridge.
Looking forward, a massive part of the automating engine is going to be driven by AI, as we know. So, Paul, just to close out our main discussion, a final question for you, now that you're on the spotlight.
Thank you.
Tell me, how can financial institutions build greater customer trust and transparency, especially when using AI-driven recommendations, automation, and decision-making tools?
So I think, again, becoming that trusted advisor is important, but most importantly, it's going to have proactive communication to a customer. If a customer approaches us, they know what they're after. Be proactive, acknowledge it, say, we've got what it is you're asking for, and assist them with it immediately. And then if you're able to do that part, then you're able to fulfill on the other pieces as well. So there'll be milestones that might be happening in a customer journey. Make sure you've got a communication path for each milestone. And just think about yourselves. How many times have you applied for something, regardless of what industry it's in, banking, perhaps it's not even within the finance realm. It could be ordering a burger. Isn't it nice to know how long it's going to take for that burger to be ready? You go to McDonald's expecting it to be ready in a minute, and it could take 10 minutes. Keep the customers informed. So that's important for us. Customers want to know what's happening. They want to know that someone's taking ownership. They don't want it to be system-led and thinking that they're talking to a robot or somebody that hasn't got any empathy for them. So that's very important. And even if it's a no or an answer that a customer's not looking for, have that ability to explain why. We're all human after all. Be transparent with the customers, walk that journey with them. One of the key things that we like to get is feedback. I bet if I was to ask everyone over here to put up their hands who's had a bad experience with the institute that I work at, there'll be quite a few hands. So I can't hand on heart say that we've got the perfect model. But what would give me concern is if I saw repetitive of the same issue coming up. That tells me we're not learning.
Yeah.
So when we look at feedback from customers, we try to learn from that and we improve our processes based on that. So if you haven't got feedback with your customer, you're already nowhere. That's one of the most important things to continue, and make sure you've got customers that want to give you feedback. A quiet customer, it's the most deadly customer because they just keep quiet and go elsewhere.
Yeah. To the panel, thank you so much. If there is a common thread here, is that technology, whether AI, whether cloud modernization, is only as effective as the empathy or the alignment behind it. Thank you for your time. Now it's an opportunity for us to start grilling the audience. Just kidding. Any questions for the panel audience on such insightful views and this topic? I'm not shy, so I'm going to do what was not done before. I know how IT people are, so sometimes we just need to nudge them a bit there. I'm going to skip you, don't worry. You look nervous there.
It's a gentleman with a question there.
Okay, who's our lucky person?
Don't feel bad. He always goes for the ladies first. I noticed it firsthand.
I had to take that opportunity first as a man.
Thank you.
My
Maybe
name is
please,
Teboho from
please
ASA.
introduce yourself, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
My question, particularly with experience, is how do you, in a environment like South Africa or even Africa, where the clients are in geographical settings that are very different and therefore with different needs, how do you design for their experiences and their needs in a digitally led era?
Great question, Teboho. Thank you. I think because of your experience, Jesang, in the African continent, do you mind taking that for us, please?
Sure. So I think user centricity for me is sort of the theme that I'm going with here, and it's what we aim to do in all the initiatives, sectors, wherever we work. So we do a lot of work in rural sectors as well, and in those sectors, it's important to contextualize the need. So mobile financial services that are driving financial inclusion across the continent is what are the providers we primarily work with. So consideration for things like ensuring active agent networks on the ground where branches are not accessible. So as a first touch point, before people fully get comfortable with digitization, can I ensure you're paid digitally, but if you still need cash, you have an agent point to withdraw? Language considerations are another big one. There's a myriad, I think hundreds of languages spoken on the continent. And regardless of Tiolo in Malawi, wherever we're doing initiatives, we work with those providers to ensure language considerations are included. Because understanding is a big part of digital and financial literacy in those contexts, and you want to ensure people know what they're signing up for, cost implications, etc. But what we always encourage is, and I think some of my panelists alluded to this, you need to think through the elements that build trust in the context of that community. The other one is connectivity and device consideration. So what does the enabling infrastructure there look like? Do they have access to electricity to charge phones, which are the rails for digital payments? The third one I would say is cost. That remains a big one for us on digital payments. Costs that eat into very small transactions cause people to revert back to cash. So working with regulators in those sectors to encourage interoperability and bring in competition to minimize cost has been really important. So I think those would be some of the lessons I can share on our experiences across the continent.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jesang. You get an A+ for that response. Deborah, you happy? Thank you. Grace, would you like to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I think it also speaks to what we spoke about earlier, is that the big shift is moving from product-led journeys to client-led operations. So whatever we're designing, whether it be digital, whether it be human interventions, we need to apply both lenses. And I think when you look at specifically the different parts of Africa, I mean, load shedding is a real thing that we need to look at. So when we're designing something and putting something out there, we need to know that it's accessible to that community. So we need to be very aware of the different needs and then respond appropriately.
Thank you so much for that. Back to you guys. Any further questions? Gentlemen at the back, thank you for being brave enough.
Yeah, thank you. So I think from my perspective, CVP is something that sits at the heart of what we do in all our industries. But my question is more on the principle. I understand that what we are trying to do is to get to the customer need. And what we are trying to do is to extract and provide the best value that we can for our clients.
Yeah.
What would you say makes a good client strategy versus a bad one? And barring the fact that in many cases, a lot of the information that we are talking about here is information that you would have already spoken about with with each of your divisions within your organization. But then something would still be missing. So what I want to explore is what then would be, in your opinions, a good client strategy versus a bad one, given that you understand the client needs.
What's your name again, my brother?
Napo.
Napo. From?
APSA.
APSA, great. Grace, Caroline, because of your experience with customers and clients, I think you're better suited to give a response.
So I wanted to clarify something in your question. You said there's something that is part of all of our industries. So maybe you could just help me explain exactly the core of what you're asking again.
So the plain and simple of it is what's a good client strategy versus a bad one? The context behind it is that in many cases, the same items that you're talking about in this panel are things that you would have actually spoken about with each of the organizations that you're part of. And in some cases, even given all of that, there is sometimes a disconnect between strategy and execution. And, well, I'm kind of answering myself in a way, but but I actually wanted to understand what would you say makes a good customer strategy versus a bad one? And if I were to draw up a customer journey for my customers at ABSA, what would you say would be a good customer journey that I've drafted versus a horrible one?
Well, one that works would be a good one. Look, I think I don't know that there's one answer about what fits well, but I do think you need to think about what works for the client. And I think we often think about what do I need for a product, as opposed to what does the client need, and what does the client not need. I think, Grace, you talked about effort. You know, it's one of the greatest forms of disrespect when we don't actually listen to what people are telling us. So if we've asked them something a month ago, asking them the same thing is not only a waste of their time, but it is rather disrespectful. So I think when we're designing for the journeys, you know, we want their business, they want a great relationship. Well, we should both want a great relationship. But how is that journey designed from their perspective to be seamless? And if they're having to provide information, why is that? Do you already have it? And I think that's a journey of improvement. But I think we need to see, I think one of my other colleagues was saying that we need to think about the client in the totality of how they touch us, right? It's not just one instance, and I think this is where the product thinking can be quite damaging for us. You know, we might have a banking client in the business bank side who's a director of a business, asking them for all their information again and treating them like we don't know them at all, you know, in a retail banking context is not good for them. And bringing that context across is not. So I think the big thing is clients stay with where they feel that we care about them and that we know them. So how do you put yourself in those shoes when designing your processes and make it appealing to the client? So try and forget what might be the best practice or the common way of doing things, but really rethink things in fresh eyes from the client's perspective, I think is likely to be a winning strategy, because I think we think from, well, this must be done, this box must be ticked, I need this for this product. Doesn't matter if we've got it somewhere else, that's too much effort. That's not in the client's interest. And over time, clients feel that.
Thank you, Caroline. Grace?
So I'll just add to that the art of possible is important. So it's important for us to think what is possible. So clients ask us a lot of things, but what is possible? Because a bank like ABSA has been around for a while, so you've got some legacy systems that you need to be aware of. So we mustn't oversell what we can actually do. And I think customers really appreciate when we are honest with them and transparent. So you've asked me to do A to Z, but I can maybe give you a J. That's it. Maybe we can look at the rest at a later stage. I think that is quite important. And to your point, you know, we do have the voice of our customers, and it's so important that we go back to them with feedback on what we've asked them. This is what we can do for you. It is not just a one size fits all. And I think the biggest mistake, if you want to ask me what is the worst client strategy, is to only focus on getting new clients, because you've got a big base of clients, and often we design products to attract new clients, and that's what annoys our existing clients, because they've been loyal and they've been with us consistently, and they've been asking for certain things, but we'll give new special features and prizes and benefits and all of that to attract new clients. But what about me that's been with you for 20 years? So there's nothing that you're looking at for that. So you need to look at both attracting, but also the retaining of your existing base.
Thank you, Grace. Couldn't agree more. Paul, you have a good and fair sense of the customer journey, especially, within your role. Would you like to weigh in on that?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great question. I could carry on this subject for the entire day. It's fantastic. So first thing, and it's true for any business or any type of product, give the customer what they ask for. So you're either attracting the customer into your world, either into your branches or your digital environment on the landing page. Something's attracted them, they want something, give it to them. Don't try to cross-sell too many things or give them something that they're not interested in. That's the one. If you're going out and fetching business, that means you know your customer, you know what product you're going in with. Either these guys are in the market for credit, they need a transactional bank account, they've got payments to make, whatever it might be. You've got a product that you're going in. So always identify your customer, see how it is that you're attracting them or fetching them, and then you know what product to go with. Also, I love the whole segment strategies as well. I love the question about the community economy, especially, and how you get into there. What I've learned has always been from our customers, and it's always been from problems that they needed solving. And I'm just going to give a quick example, if you don't mind. Used to work with e-wallet. Everyone knows e-wallet. You heard Julius Malema mention it, that you must e-wallet somebody in Parliament once. And what a great product. And the purpose of that product was to replace cash and check payments, an electronic payment opportunity. And we had farmers who were telling us, look, they're getting robbed if they've got cash payments to give to their workers. Have you got a solution? I said, absolutely. You're going to pay them via e-wallet. They're going to get the money onto their phone. Problem solved. My boss at the time called me and said, you idiot. You've just managed to now get all these farmers' workers paid electronically. Where the hell are they going to access the cash? There's no ATMs out in the middle of these farms or anything. Oh boy. Great. So I made a mistake. Now we need to go and fix it. Yeah. En route to fixing it, e-wallet had expanded throughout that whole agricultural sector like we'd never planned for. So what happened is the farmers started paying the workers using it, and they found a solution to a problem we didn't know existed. They were getting robbed. People were taking their money. A funny story is the husbands would say their wives would steal their money. But either way, however it was happening, if they had cash, they lost the cash. Now they were so thankful to have it on e-wallet because it was in this electronic wallet. What they figured out was that they could transact amongst each other, so they could start making payments to themselves electronically. We just created the biggest base of customer upgrades than we've ever had. That was done completely inadvertently. So having strategy is one thing, but I think knowing the customer, giving them what they're asking for, in this case, we give the farmer what he asked for, and it led to something fantastic for us. Yeah, opportunity always comes when you just give what they're asking for.
Brilliantly said. Thanks, Paul. We have 4 minutes to take one more question. The lady in green or lime. Terrible with color, don't worry.
Good afternoon.
I like it.
Please introduce yourself so that everyone may know who you are,
My name is
please.
Basi. I am from West Bank.
Welcome.
So, in the banking industry, in a couple of years, there has been some sensitization of customers based on scoring and product offering, right? There is this perceived bias that is running around out there that, as the banking industry, we cannot shy away from. How do we deal with making sure that when the scoring is concluded and the customer is aggrieved for whatever reason, we make sure that we are transparent enough to say, as much as you think you deserved A or B or Z, and we gave you null or you gave you D, how do we make it so transparent that the customer moves from being aggrieved to understanding? For example, sometimes even that goes to, I could get the same product that I asked for from the red bank, but you as a till bank told me I cannot afford it. That stems from initial perceived bias, but sometimes it could be the truth. So how do we deal with that?
Panel, FNB, Capitec.
Yeah,
Well, it's scored. I mean, come on.
scored. Here we go.
And you were talking about explainability in your models, so.
Yeah. So, look, I think I touched on it earlier. Clients are always going to be, you're always going to have clients who are disappointed. They want something, they can't necessarily get it. And then they're even more disappointed if they find they can get it elsewhere and who they bank with, they couldn't get with. It's a reality of the business. There's no prejudice against any clients whatsoever, ever. Scorecard-driven, customer insights, all the analytics around it, it is all done fair and transparent. And I think the key thing that we need to start doing on this is making sure that we're a lot more transparent with our customers. You can't get this because of that. Explain it fully. Say, this is where we sit, this is what we're seeing, this is what's happening on your side, this is as far as we can go. If they can have that same conversation with whichever color bank, great. More likely than not, because we do check on the performance of customers that may have taken up elsewhere and things, to monitor if our scorecard is doing a good job or not. And if you do start seeing defaults in that, maybe they didn't pick up on something that we did. So everyone has got different strategies that they're playing with. If you've got an acquisition strategy, you might be more lenient to giving out credit to acquire the customer, knowing that if you play the volume game, it will level out. If you're trying to create a strong book, you may be less lenient to do that. And that's where you're going to get those variances between the banks as well. And they change all the time. You know, it's not one bank stays on this strategy forever. We're always shifting. So I understand from a customer's perspective that they'll see it as bias. And that's where I think it's just important to always be transparent with the customer.
Brilliant. Thanks, Paul. 1 minute left. Caroline, would you like to take it?
Oh, I don't think I should weigh in on that one. But there was another question.
Yeah.
You got 52 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go, Santam.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tshidiso. I'm from Santam. So my question is, when it comes to user journeys, designing for ease of use versus designing for trust, these can be seen as two competing requirements. What are some of the strategies that you guys employ to traverse between addressing these requirements? And I'll make a typical example, PaySharp. In its essence, it was meant to address the unbanked. But if you do some profiling, you'll see that these are the elderly, these are people in the rural areas. But as a payment rail, it's supposed to be secure. But then again, you know, the target market is the unbanked, which are rural people, the elderly. So how do you traverse between these two competing requirements?
Seeing as I work at the bank.
I didn't want to pick on you there.
Your turn. No? Okay. First off, if something's not simple and it should be, don't trust it. Something like PaySharp especially, secure payment mechanism, it is built for everyone to be able to make use of, and I think it's been quite successful actually. I mean, I don't know if there's anyone in this room that hasn't used it, you really should. But transversing that, I know I'm out of time. Literally, anything that's complicated to a customer, we haven't done a good job. Because anything can be unraveled by us. That's why we're employed. And if we haven't fixed that, and it's complicated for the customer, we've got a lot of self-reflection to do. And that's for any product. I mean, whether it's sending Forex overseas, and there's a whole bunch of mandates and requirements that you need to do, whether it's looking at a risk appetite on what to loan to a customer, that all happens internally. You, from a customer perspective, your ideal solution is see the offer, see what's available, click, click, take up. We should do all the work in the background for you.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah, you agree.
Well done, Paul.
Brilliant. To the panel, once more, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Thanks for great
you for your
questions.
time.
Audience, you've been great. Thank you for indulging us.